Should you play New World in 2024? That's the question I'm going to try and answer today, and I'm going to try and answer it for a few different people. People who've never played the game, returning players, and then people who are sort of already playing right now. Although I'm pretty sure you guys might have made up your mind. So let's jump into it, and this is very timely because the game has just gone on sale on Steam. Now, if you are not aware, New World now has an expansion. So there is the standard edition, which is the base game, which will take you up to level 60, and then beyond that you need an expansion from 60 to 65, which is paid. Now, one thing I want to point out here is I would simply just recommend one of two versions. I would either recommend the standard edition, or you jump straight in for the Elysium edition. And actually, I would just recommend the standard edition. So for these extra editions here, you do get skins and stuff like that, but nothing really of any kind of serious value. Sure, you can buy them if you're like mega rich, it's fine. But the reason I would recommend the standard edition is the standard edition is, in my currency, £13.19, which is about $15, I think. And the Elysium edition, which includes the base game and the expansion, is $38.18. But the price of the standard edition and the normal price for the expansion, which is here, which is $24.99, that actually adds up to that price. So there is no discount on the expansion. So you might as well just buy the standard edition. Now, there is a little bit of a disclaimer there. The one main thing that you want out of the expansion is mounts, because mounts radically change the game. Basically, you get a mount at level 25, but you only get it if you buy the expansion. So I would say if you're like short of money and you're just thinking about dipping your toe in, buy the standard edition. Otherwise, buy the Elysium edition and get the expansion, because you just might as well, because level 25 mounts is just good. Now, the first type of player that I want to talk about is the ones who are completely new to the game. If you are new to the game, then I would recommend buying that standard edition and trying the combat. This is the kind of game where you actually have to like aim everything, you have to like block, you have to like actually, you know, attack and all that kind of stuff. You can dodge. It's all pure action combat. The only thing I could sort of relate it to is maybe like Dark Souls, but there's no like lock on. Now, some of that might actually change when we get controller support this year, but for now, the game is literally full on action combat. Okay, I really like it because the pace of the game for me is sensational. What I would say is if you buy the normal standard edition and you don't like the combat, either refund or just stop playing. The game doesn't really change that much in its combat. It gets a little bit more advanced as you get all your abilities, and in PvP especially, it gets a little bit more like chaotic, right? The skill ceiling sort of can go higher in PvP for sure, but the action combat is, if you like it, you'll like it, and if you don't, you don't. It's that simple, really, in my eyes. If you do buy it, it's worth noting that the level experience has changed, right? So it used to be, and if you look at any like old video, you might see that they'll say go to each town and go to a town board and do all of the like basic quests. That's not what you do anymore, okay? The way of leveling in this game is pretty simple. You'll start off in either like Monarch's Bluff or Windswood, I think, and you see this symbol here. This is basically your main quest. You do these first and foremost. These will level you up the quickest. And if you're getting sort of like too far behind that because you've not leveled up quick enough, then what you do are the side quests, which are these other quests here. If you do all of those on the map in every zone, you will level up very quickly. I think it takes about 30 hours. Whilst there are different kinds of boosts in the game now, none of them help you with your leveling XP. And I think that's to avoid the appearance of being any kind of like pay to win. So I wouldn't really worry about buying any boosters or anything like that. You can just buy the game and play it. And you know what? I think you'll get a lot of content. The leveling, as I said, 30 hours. When you get to the end game, that's where like the content really sort of presents itself to you. And there's a variety of different content you can do. There are a couple of instance PvP modes, Outpost Rush and 3v3 arenas. 3v3 arena is literally as it says, it's one map where there's literally 3 people on one side and 3 on the others, and you just kill each other and it's best of 5. That's actually my favorite mode. And when you get to the end game, all of your gear will actually be scaled up to 675. So even if you're in terrible gear, you won't be like massively behind. I would say that you'd probably want the perks. Now, I won't necessarily explain what perks are. It's not really a guide video, but I would say you want the perks as well. And Outpost Rush, you can sort of hide a little bit more. If 3v3 is a little bit too stressful for you, then Outpost Rush is a 20v20 mode, and there's basically 3 points, and you just have to capture them and hold them the longest. They're the main kind of like instance PvP mode. There's also one going on right now, which isn't instance, distance, but it's in the open world. There's these things called influence races. They have a little bit of a problem at the minute with quests. Like I said, I don't really want to do a guide, but there's basically these things every evening. It's worth noting, I think it's 7 and 8 o'clock server time. Every evening some zones become active, and what it is that there's 3 points on the map and you have to hold them, and then whoever holds them can sort of challenge for war. Wars are content that, unless you're like very elite PvP, you're not probably going to interact with, but they are PvP content nonetheless. It's also worth noting that each zone has a fort, and the fort can also be fought over PvP wise. That's really sort of what the PvP content is. For PvE, the game has everything you would expect, right? There's gathering, crafting, all that kind of stuff. You can literally, in New World, pretty much everything you see you can interact with in a crafting kind of way, right? And it's quite fun to level them up. A lot of people say that the visuals and the sound design and stuff like that of New World, it's very soothing, and it's, you know, it's quite fun to just, you know, come on, chop down trees. Not quite sure how that was a bush. It was a very big bush, but you know, you can come out, gather, there's all kinds of stuff. You can kill stuff and skin them and all that kind of jazz, right? That kind of content is definitely here for you. And if you want PvE content in terms of raids, we don't really have proper raids. We have like one raid boss who's not really being done. The main PvE content in New World are these things called expeditions, which basically just a 5-man dungeon. And we do have a group finder where, like, for example, this is one of them. I think there's around about 10 now. There's quite a lot actually, and you can come here and find a group, and it's basically in lobbies, right? So you do the normal mode, which is very easy. The M1, which stands for mutation because there's these like various extra effects on them, relatively easy in M1. M2, you sort of need to have all the right stuff. M3 can be, and often is, very fiendishly difficult. So if you want some PvE challenge, this is what you're going to be doing, 5-man dungeons. Now in March, I think we're actually it might be a bit before March, could be February, at some point soon we're going to have like an automatic queue. At the minute, what happens is if you find a group and you have to sort of join a group, and you know, then it just sort of like sends you straight in February, I think maybe there's just going to be a button, you're going to hit the button, you're going to do it, and there is the holy trinity of, you know, tanking, healing, DPS. That's really the content, to be honest with you. If that sounds interesting, then I think a returning player should come and play this game. Sorry, I just said returning. I mean a new player should do it. Now, for an actual returning player, it really depends on who you are and when you stopped. Did you stop when we had the expertise system and the high watermark gear score and people were doing chest runs? Yes, chest runs are still a thing, but if you stopped there where we had this sort of like score and it was sort of next to your name and it was like an expertise, and even before that it existed but you didn't see it, if you stopped back then we only really had 2 dungeons that you couldn't really enter. In that case, the game is definitely worth playing. It's pretty much all of what I just said for the new player, except there's more of everything. We have another arena map. In fact, arena might not have existed when you were doing it. And we have way more dungeons. Instead of just having Lazarus and Genesis, we now have a lot more. As I said, I think there's around about 10. There is the 20-man worm, but the worm's not really being done that much. And there is the 10-man seasonal trial, but again, that's not really being done very much. They've not really scaled them up to be worth doing. There is the PvP influence races, so if you're a PvP fan, that only came in Season 3, the expansion, so it probably is worth buying, I think, if you are that kind of player. Now, if you're a returning player who's stopped somewhere within the last, say, I don't know, 10 months maybe, then actually I would recommend not coming back to it depending on why you stopped. Quite simply, the amount of endgame content hasn't really been truly expanded on. Yes, the expansion did fix a lot of the system. So if you were already doing like M3s and you were doing Ward and Bane and you had all the stuff, and I just called them M3s, but actually it was M10s at the time. If you were doing them, then there's nothing really new for you. However, if you weren't doing them and you wanted to, and Ward and Bane and stuff like that was putting you off, well, now it's worth knowing that there is no Ward and Bane, and you can just have a gear set with all your gear in it, pick that, go do PvE, no questions asked, right? People will still want to see your gear to make sure you've got all the right protections and stuff like that, all the right gems, but there's no Ward and Bane, so you can literally just have one set and you can change your gems up every week. So if that was a thing where you quit beforehand and that was a pain for you, then it still might be worth coming back. But if you were sick of the content and you were like, oh, I need more, then there's not really been much more apart from a handful of dungeons. So it really depends on who you are there. I would say also that expertise, as I mentioned, is gone. Now it basically just works like this. Whatever gear score drops for you is whatever gear score you are. So if you do like a regular dungeon, you might start getting gear that's maybe like 6, 7, 5 max. But if you do an M3, which is the hardest PvE, you will get gear score, which is 700, which is the max that the game offers you right now. So that system is way better. As I said, we also have gear sets, which is pretty cool. We have transmog, so you can actually make your appearance anywhere you like. There's a lot of improvements in that sense. So content wise, if you're a returning player, it sort of depends why you stopped. Did you stop because Warden Bane was a pain? Then yeah, come back. Did you stop because we ran out of content? It's a little bit more questionable. If you stopped way early because the end game was just jank, then there's a lot more to it now, so I would definitely recommend it. And then I want to talk about like existing players. This one's a bit of a meme, so bear with me. I'm sure many of you will have seen this. If you are an existing player, this is our sort of upcoming roadmap. Worth noting, we're getting a full bigger roadmap in May. And actually that announcement, by the way, pretty confident it's going to be console, but obviously they're not announcing that yet. But this is the content we're getting up until May. If you are an existing player, you have to ask yourself, do you think that this will satisfy you? If not, it's time to start taking breaks. And if so, then, you know, fine, you're happy, keep playing whenever you want. I think the game right now probably won't get a lot of content until sort of around about September next year, where I think we'll have a proper paid expansion again. That's sort of my theory. I think console will be a good like interjection of like interest in people into the game as well. I think the future at the end of 2024 might be bright. I just think the first half of 2024, looking at this, might be a little bit dull. So for the existing players, that choice is up to you. If you're an existing player, you know probably as well as I know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? You don't really need my help. So in short, and I'm probably rambling a little bit here, in short, I would say that if you are a new player and you're considering playing the game, yes, go ahead, buy the game. Don't be overly concerned with the current sentiment of the game. We know that for like the hardcore players who are playing a lot, there's not much content coming in the next 6 months. New World's actually a very casual friendly game as well, by the way. I didn't even talk about whether or not you were casual or you were hardcore. New World's relatively casual. If you're a casual MMO enjoyer who wants action combat and you're thinking about picking up New World, it's sensational for you. If you're a hardcore player, then you'll probably get through the content and be like, oh, where's the rest kind of thing. But if you're new, you'll definitely get your money's worth anyway, so I would recommend it, as long as you enjoy the combat. If you're a returning player, it depends why you quit. Did you quit because of Warden Bane? Well, then come back, because that's gone. Did you quit right at the start because the end game was absolutely atrocious? Then come back, because actually that's a lot better now. But did you quit because actually you were just done with all the content, you've done all the M10s, and you're fed up with like just 5-person dungeons? Then no, we're not quite ready for you yet. And if you're an existing player, then you know what's going on. I don't need to tell you. There's probably not going to be that much for hardcore existing players for the next 6 months, but there's stuff out there if you really truly enjoy the game like myself. Of course, I'm going to still be playing it, right? So should you play New World in 2024? Well, it depends who you are, and hopefully I sort of answered the question, maybe. I'm assuming that most people who actually watch this are new players or returning players, and I think I summarized it as best I possibly can. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below though. Whilst I absolutely appreciate my Patreons, it's not possible at the minute for me to put a link to my Patreon in the description because the channel's so new, YouTube sort of doesn't let me do external link. That's fine, it's okay, whatever. But a big shout out to you guys nonetheless. If you want to come and talk to me about New World, then I pretty much stream it every day. Apart from Saturdays, but even this Saturday I'm going to stream, because then I'm not actually going to stream over Christmas, okay? I have a wife and a child. But come and talk to me on Twitch, it'll be beautiful, we'll have great times. And I really hope that people who will enjoy it pick up the game, because I think there's a lot to like in the game still. Go ahead and do it. Make your day. It's cheap. It's quite cheap. Other than that, have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.